Welcome to Activate Your Freedom with Nakeisha Geddes, a space for women who are ready to move beyond survival mode into clarity, structure, and intentional living. I'm Nakeisha Geddes, entrepreneur, author, speaker, and someone who understands what it means to carry many roles while still hearing the deeper call to become. Here we have honest conversation about healing, identity, leadership, faith, business, and the practical shift required to build a life that truly aligns with who you are becoming. If you know there are more for you than just simple managing life, then this is the space for you. Let's begin. Welcome back to Activate Your Freedom. I'm Nakeisha Geddes, and today I want to ask you a question that may feel simple but has the power to change everything. Who were you before survival mode? Before the pressure? Before the burnout? Before life taught you to be strong? Before responsibilities become heavier than your dreams? Who were you before you become the version of yourself that only knew how to survive? Because I think so many women have spent years becoming who everybody else needed them to be, that they no longer recognize themselves anymore. And what's scary is that it doesn't happen overnight. You don't just wake up one day and decide to disappear. It happens slowly, quietly, one compromise at a time, one disappointment at a time, and one survival decision at a time. Until one day, you realize you've become disconnected from yourself. And today, I want us to talk about that. But more importantly, I want us to talk about returning to ourselves. I think one of the hardest things about survival mode is that eventually it starts to feel normal. You become so used to functioning under pressure that peace starts to feel unfamiliar. You become so used to carrying everything that rest feels uncomfortable. You become so used to pouring into everyone else that when somebody asks you what you want, you don't even know how to answer anymore. And I know this because I've actually lived this life for years. There was a time in my life where I was constantly moving, constantly building, and constantly surviving. I was handling responsibility. I was being dependable. I was pushing through exhaustion. When I mean exhaustion. And I was showing up for everyone. And eventually, it felt like pressure. It felt like I just didn't know who I was anymore. But it looked like productivity. I was disconnected from myself, not because I was weak, not because I lacked ambition, but because survival mode forces me to function and I was not moving in alignment. And there's a difference. You can be successful and still disconnected. You can be highly functioning and still emotionally exhausted. You can be surrounded by people and still feel far away from yourself. And one day, I had to ask myself, who was I before survival became my identity? Before I become the strong one, before I learned to suppress my emotion just to keep moving, before I started abandoning my own needs to make everyone else comfortable, who was she? And maybe you're asking yourself the same question right now. Maybe there was a version of you that was softer, lighter, creative, joyful, or even more adventurous. Maybe you used to be a dreamer. Maybe you used to rest without feeling guilty. And maybe you used to trust yourself more. Maybe you used to feel connected to who you were before life become responsibility and survival. And somewhere along the way, you disappear inside your roles. Your role of a mother, a partner, a provider, an employee, a business owner, the strong friend, you become that dependable one. And while you were busy surviving, you stop checking in with yourself. I think a lot of women don't actually need to become someone new. They need permission to return to themselves. Because deep down, your spirit remember who you were before survival mode took over. And here's what I've realized. Healing isn't always about creating a completely new version of yourself. Sometimes healing is just remembering who you used to be, remembering what brings you peace, remembering what lights you up, remembering what makes you feel alive, and remembering you had to silence yourself in order to survive. And the truth is, survival mode teaches you how to stay alive. But eventually, you reach a point where staying alive is no longer enough. Let me know if that's where you are right now. You want to feel connected again, present again, free. Do you remember what it was like to be free? And that journey can feel uncomfortable because the moment you become reconnected with yourself, things start to shift. Your boundaries change. Yes, you start to set boundaries. Your conversation changes. Your tolerance, this is the big one, your tolerance changes and your priority changes because the version of you that's healing can no longer keep betraying yourself to maintain comfort for everyone else. I want you to really think about this. When was the last time you felt fully connected to yourself? Not productivity, not needed, and not useful, but truly connected to yourself, truly connected to who you used to be, truly connected to the woman who wanted more. When was the last time you felt peace without guilt? When was the last time you choose yourself without explaining it? I remember I used to explain everything I'm doing, or even sometimes somebody texts you a simple question and instead of just answering it, you go straight into explanation mode. When was the last time you allowed yourself to dream beyond survival? Because your life is not supposed to only be about making it through. Did you know that? You deserve to experience joy too, softness, and freedom. And I think that's the shift so many women are entering right now. They're tired of surviving. They're ready to return to themselves. So, if you've been feeling disconnected lately, this is your reminder. You are not lost. You are buried beneath years of surviving. And little by little, you can find your way back to yourself. Not by becoming someone else, but by reconnected to the version of you that existed before the pressure convinced you that survival was the only option. And maybe the next version of your life doesn't begin with becoming. Maybe it begins with remembering. And I want you to just spend some time realizing that you deserve the life that you truly desire. Everything that you've ever dreamed of, everything that you've ever wanted, you deserve it. And I'm praying that this is the moment that you realize that I have put me on the back burner for way too long. And it's time for me to come up front and start doing the things that will put me first. And yes, you're going to get some resistance from those that used to you being this version, but eventually they will adjust. You need to learn how to say no to the things that feel pressured, to the things that doesn't align with the version that you want, the version of you that you want to become. And you need to start making yourself a priority. And I hope that this episode helps you to find your way back to you. So thank you for joining me for another episode of Activate Your Freedom with Nakeisha. If this episode speaks to you, share it with someone who's been carrying life in survival mode for way too long. And remember, you are allowed to return to yourself. You are allowed to choose peace. And you are allowed to build a life that feels good to your soul, not just looks good to everyone else. Have a great day. Before we close, I want to leave you with this. Just because you've learned how to function doesn't mean you have to stay there. Freedom starts with awareness, with honesty, with choosing to listen to yourself in a deeper way. If this episode spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs it. And if you're ready to go deeper, make sure you follow the podcast so you don't miss what's next. This is Activate Your Freedom, and your next level starts with you.